Welcome to the shop. I have something very different. I've never done a review on a drone quadcopter. This is the Ruko F11Pro 2, just released. And they were kind enough to send this to me for my review. So in the box, as you can see, there's two batteries. One's already in it, one's here. You've got props, cables, controller, which does require you to connect it up to an iPhone or Android or whatever. Obviously, some documentation. This little RFID or RID unit is not included, but I plan on attaching it there. But I typically fly in a FRIA, so I don't worry about it. Lens cover and some handy, starter kit kind of stuff that sits over here. So kind of reminds you what the heck is you're doing. Because I'm new to this stuff. So I'm not a big, I'm not a drone guy. But I do want to use this and figure out how I can use this kit for my videos. Get different shots, different angles of shots. And I think there's some benefits to this, especially with some of the features it has, from just the quality of camera, the stability of the camera, things like that I'm pretty interested in how that works. I'm going to go through and test a lot of that, test the GPS feature and return to home. How good is all of that? Because again, I've never done a lot of this stuff with drones. So I'm going to take you along the ride as a beginner, getting a new drone and testing it out. So stick around. Let's talk about setting this thing up, getting it ready for the first flight. We've got a flight guide, safety disclaimer, and a user's manual. Both of them are filled with a lot of good data, and I highly recommend you skimming through this a little bit just to see how it all goes together. Most important thing are some of these things as far as the flashing lights. What do those mean? The flashing lights on the drone. One of the things that need to understand is how this all charges. How does the remote connect to your phone? So for example, this right here is a charging port. I made the mistake of not looking at all the instructions and assuming the charging port is also the same as the communication port to my iPhone. I was very wrong because there is literally a USB-C connector right there, which this so conveniently goes into, and then this plugs into my phone. For a while there, I was a little confused because I couldn't get connection on my phone. Follow the instructions in the documentation and you won't have any problem getting this thing up and running. So now that I just went through all of that, let's get this thing charged up and go do a little flying. Real quick on charging. In the documentation, they're pretty adamant about using the supplied cables. So there's two of them, so you can charge those batteries at the same time. Not a big deal. When you plug them in, little blue lights are going to flash. When the blue lights stop flashing, well, it's fully charged and you're ready to go. A couple things I noticed. One is the drone as well as the controller are very lightweight. The way the drone, as far as the arms come out, pretty simple. The gimbal and the camera system, I was flying in some pretty heavy wind and it was completely steady. The only sensor on this whole thing is on the bottom, and that is for stabilizing when you're at a certain height. It's not real high, but it's not for landing so much as it is more for keeping this thing steady. Nice thing I like about it, there's none of those things, none of those sensors to get in the way of the hand catch. Before the first flight, got to do some settings up in that upper right corner. Here are all the parameters that you can change from distance, altitude, return to home. And that's probably the more critical one. Might want to think about that. Also, what is your maximum range you want? So you can make any changes you like there. If you select that button up on the upper left on your screen, it's for taking off. Pretty simple. Or you can hold the sticks both down and inside, and it'll start up the motors and then just go up by pushing that left stick forward. Return to home, which is highlighted there. There's also a return to home on the controller. And what I have found is that the accuracy was really impressive, maybe within 2 feet of me flying around for quite a while. It'll also return to home if it loses signal and or the batteries get too low. It's going to start coming home on you. There's a couple neat, they call them GPS features, and I'm going to highlight 3 of them upcoming here pretty soon. Down in the lower left is kind of the radar. Shows you where your drone is in relation to you and its orientation. If you select it, you'll go to a map. If you select it again, you'll get the large map so you can find your drone if it's lost. All right, let's get this guy out to fly. First thing, I would take off this camera cover. If you start the drone up with the camera cover, it doesn't tell you there's a camera cover on it. So you're going to be a little bit disappointed in your footage. You'll have to figure that out. All right. I'm going to turn the drone on by just holding this button down, and it'll start up, and then start this up, and then plug in the battery, plug in the cell phone, start the app. Let it get all booted up. Need to do a GPS lock, but everything else will be good. All right, we have GPS lock. Gonna hit record. So I start the recording, and I'm gonna just pull both sticks straight down. That starts up the motors, and then there we go. And now we got our drone up. To land, all I gotta do is pull, come down, nice and steady, and touchdown nice and light. That's it. Pretty simple. Easy to set up, easy to fly. One of the GPS features that I played around with is GPS follow, which is essentially you select it, got to be at a certain height, but the drone is basically going to follow the controller. Pretty simple. It's going to follow me. So if I start walking this way, I turn around here, yep, he's following me, which is kind of cool. All right, now so it's following the controller, and I'm curious how the camera angles are going to work. And I'm going to make a left here, and let's see what my drone does. Yeah, it's turning and following me. Pretty cool feature. The next is fly around, which is basically it's going to orbit whenever you hit that button, where the drone is at that point is going to be the center of its orbit. You can change the orbit. I show an example here how you can do that. Is right over me, and I'm going to hit that, and watch, it's going to back up, and that's the default, and now it's going to start its rotation as it goes. All right, so it's rotating around me. Now, cool thing is, sorry about the sun, if I go backwards, it expands the rotation. So I can make those changes on the fly, make some adjustments to my camera, and now I get a wider angle of rotation, which is kind of a handy little deal. And then when I'm done, I think I can even, let's see if this works. I can slow it down. Oh, that's cool. So by hitting my sticks one way or another, I could either speed up the rotation, or slow down the rotation. Very cool. All right, here's a cool feature, route planning. click on that and it'll pop up a map. And on the map, that circle in the middle, that's, well, where you are, but it also is the max range that you can select your points. Now I'm just clicking on the screen where I want the drone to go as far as waypoints. As soon as you're done with that, you select that where I've highlighted in the upper right, and it'll start the process. You got to be at least 48 feet high. Also, think about this. If you go over trees that are 100 feet high, there's no obstacle avoidance. You're going to have a problem. So once you hit that button, though, it goes through the process, hits all the waypoints, and then stops. And then you can bring it in, land it, and do whatever you want. There she comes. And right over the runway. As I mentioned earlier, I was very impressed with the stability. It was about a 15-mile-an-hour wind. I was flying over this farm. And the quality of the image, not a lot of jostling around, as you can see, it is rock steady. I was pretty impressed by that, as well as the 4K quality. Now, for me, and I got to fiddle with it, I could only use format for Microsoft. The files would work on my Mac, but I'd had to transfer the files from my Windows machine to a thumb drive, and then they would work on my Mac. But you know what? That's not a big deal. I can live with that. Welcome back to the shop. Let's summarize a couple things. For me, the biggest thing was the camera part. And with that gimbal, the way this gimbal is set up, man, as the drone was bouncing all over the place on some of the videos, the footage was rock solid. I was really impressed with that. The flyability was very good. It's a very stable platform. Speed-wise, not going to break any records. I think got up to like 16 miles an hour was the fastest. But that's not, for me, that's not what it's for. It's for getting quality video, quality pictures of what I'm doing for my channel. So it's a tool for me, and I like that fact. Flight times were very good. One battery would last a lot of footage, and I got the 2 batteries on there. That was helpful. This does have, and I don't mention it, this does have a remote ID internally that you can set it up for it, register it with the FAA. This drone, you don't need the smaller individual remote ID. This one has that. If you're interested in getting this drone, there's a link in the description below. Also, as always, if you like the content of these videos, hit that like button. Helps me out, helps my channel grow. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.